challenging matchup for the Lakers.
Well, let's ask Tim Legler, who joins us here now. Can you bring him up because this button is not working here? Legs is doing the broadcast with me and Mike Breen tonight. He will be front and center for the Nuggets and Lakers. You've had the Nuggets a bunch of times, but we're just talking about OKC. So let's start there. Mike, Mike Trudell's in the house. Legs. He's as you know, the Lakers sideline reporter, does a phenomenal job. He had a question to ask you about OKC in a potential Lakers matchup.
Yeah, what's going on, Tim? So the way that I've looked at OKC, the ball pressure that they put on you is unlike what any other team in the NBA can do. And what I'm curious to see, and we haven't had a chance yet, of course, they haven't played, Luka and LeBron are two of the few guys in the league, I think, that can be not immune, but that can handle direct ball pressure a little bit better than most players. And just because of the size that they can get in the post if they need to. I'm curious to see how that matchup works, and whether it's a potential playoff series. That's one thing. Even they're going to play a couple times in OKC in a couple weeks. So I'm just curious what you think about how OKC's defense and the ball pressure, how that would go against a Lakers team that has these kind of unique options with both LeBron and Luka with their size, and how they can handle the pressure.
Mike, how you doing? First of all, that's a great question, and I do think you're right. And when you talk about LeBron and Luka and the unique challenges they represent when you try to pressure the basketball. However, having said that, I look at Oklahoma City, and one of the things they're so good at, they might not bother them as much off the live dribble in the perimeter, but they're very, very difficult to get past. And that is something LeBron and Luka really count on. And, you know, LeBron, it's more of a straight ahead. When he gets a gap, he's going to put his head down and go. It's difficult to clear your initial defender, and then there's almost always going to be a full-out commit to the help and recover that they do defensively on the back end. They're as good as any team I think I've ever seen at it. They just don't leave you out to dry where there's driving gaps to get all the way to the rim. In addition, they've got some size back there as well now with two different bigs. They can play two bigs together. They can play one at a time. Both of those guys very good as a last line defender at the rim, but it's hard to get through the gap all the way to the rim. That's what LeBron would require. Luka, he's not going to necessarily blow by you to get to the rim. He kind of takes his time and he works you and works his way down the lane. Probably a little bit easier for him at that point because of his passing ability to be able, because he's going a little bit slower, to be able to beat you with the pass. But in terms of, beating guys off the dribble, getting to the rim and breaking you down to that extent, Oklahoma City's as good as any team I've seen at making sure you flood the gap to help, and then their speed to the three-point line to contest is great. You think about this. These two things shouldn't go together. You should not be number one in the league in defending the paint and number one in defending the three-point line. Like, those two things are not supposed to go together. Normally it's one or the other you can excel at. They dominate both of those areas. That's how good they are defensively.
Tim Legler with us here. Of course, you can check him out all over ESPN, and he's got a podcast as well. We're going to make sure he plugs that too. He'll be on the broadcast tonight with Mike Breen. I'll be on the sideline for it. Now, Legs, the thing that's stood out to me the most, and I've had them a number of times with OKC, is just you don't really see young teams that understand the pecking order the way they do, right? Like Shea eats first, then you got Jalen and Chet, and all the other guys kind of fill their role and star in their role. But, last year they obviously lost to Luka and the Mavs. What do you think they've learned from that experience that you've seen them apply this season?
Yeah, look, I think that I have a totally different feel about this team. I knew last year they weren't ready. Even though they were one seed, I never really actually considered the fact that they could end up in the finals. It just didn't look like they were going to be ready to do that. This team feels different. There is a killer instinct that I've seen with this team that I saw a little bit lacking last year. I saw some self-doubt last year creep in during adversity in games, particularly once they got to the postseason. That, I think, is now gone. There's a self-assuredness about this team, a certainty of how this is about to go when they take the court. It's different than a year ago. Now, look, some of that is just you get a year older. Some of it is you get deeper. You go get guys like Alex Caruso and Hartenstein. It makes you have a greater belief when you've added a couple major rotational pieces. And I think also it's these other guys that are like the glue guys, like the Dorts and the Wiggins of the world, right? The Case and Wallaces of the world. Isaiah Joe. Like, all of these guys are so committed defensively without sacrificing the other end of the floor. They can all hurt you offensively. And I think now they look around at each other and they just see a totally different team in terms of being more complete and ready for a 3-round challenge. I think last year when they got into a little bit of a dicey situation in the Dallas series, I think they kind of looked at each other and they didn't necessarily have self-belief. I think that's there now when I watch them. This is a very confident team. They expect to not only get to the finals, they expect to win a championship when it's all said and done.
All right, ESPN's Tim Legler is joining us here on Sedano and Cap. This is KSPN Los Angeles, a Good Karma Brands radio station. Hey, Legs, let me bring it back to the Lakers now for a second. One of my favorite things is I love an underdog, and I love an undrafted free agent who actually makes it. When you look at Austin Reaves now at this point of his career and how he's performing and what he's become to this roster, as someone who yourself was an undrafted free agent player, what do you make of what Austin Reaves has become with the Lakers, particularly this year?
It'd be hard to even put into words the degree to which he has blown through the ceiling on what I think not only I thought, I think probably even the Lakers thought his ceiling would be offensively in this league. I didn't know much about him until you started seeing him play for the Lakers. And then right away I liked him, but liking a guy early, you don't know exactly what that's going to translate to a few years down the road. Looking at what he's doing now and the extent to which he's controlling games offensively, the numbers he's putting up, the creativity with his handle, the playmaking, the elite level scoring, I challenge everybody to do this because I just did it yesterday on my podcast. I brought this question up. Look around the league. Take 30 teams. Take a pen and paper to it. Start writing down names of the third best player on every team in this league. And I want you, when it's all said and done, to tell me how many of those guys you would definitively take over Austin Reaves.
So we did the exercise yesterday, actually, with Dave McMenamin was on the show with us. Now, here's what I took, okay? So I would take whoever you want to call the third option on the Celtics, whether it's Derek White or Porzingis. I would take Aaron Gordon just because of the defense. And I would take Chet. I mean, those three for sure. Maybe Darius Garland, I can make the case, but that's about it. Like, I didn't go much deeper than that.
Well, I guess, and I think even Cleveland would be debatable. Is it Garland or Mobley? I think there's a debate there, right? So I also put a check mark next to them. That I think it's a debate, though. I don't think it's clear cut. Mobley you would probably lean to, if you consider him third, you'd probably lean that way because of the defensive length and versatility, right? And that's a bonus on that end of the floor. Not that Austin Reaves is a good defender, but like Evan Mobley's a guy that could be like an all-league caliber defender. So that might tip it that way. You're right about the Boston thing. I wrote down the same thing. KP or White, take your pick. Either one of those two guys, you probably would. You probably would go with Chet Holmgren. Aaron Gordon is a good one, and that's my point. When you start looking at all of the names written down, you go, my goodness, look what the Lakers have found themselves the recipient of. This player that obviously has an incredible amount of confidence. He's got an edge to him. He's got a quiet confidence, the way he goes about his business. He is so sure of himself, and he obviously was from day one, that none of this is surprising to him, what's happening. And it's a cool thing to watch because I've been blown away. It almost seems like, I knew he had a good handle, and it seems like every night I watch him, like, man, his handle's getting better and better, like in season. Like that kind of thing doesn't really happen, but there's really no way to contain him with the basketball now because of his creativity and command of the basketball either direction. And it's just given them an absolute weapon. I think Luka's blown away, to be honest with you, about what he's playing with, and he kind of made some references to that the other night. But what a great player he is. It's hard to imagine to go with LeBron and Luka. You have this other guy now that's not just a scorer, a role player, a spot-up three-point shooter, or take the crumbs when they come your way. No, man, they give him the ball when they're on the court and let him go be the alpha and be the primary ball handler on a given possession. It's really been incredible to watch, and it's just another reason why with their defense, when they get LeBron back, if they reestablish that, I think a lot of people think they could legitimately make a serious run at the West.
Yeah, Legs, the only other players I think of is, maybe you talk about a Mikal Bridges or you talk about Draymond Green now that Jimmy Butler is in Golden State, but I would take Reaves certainly as a creator. What I like about him, though, You kind of have to know his background, right? So he's a younger brother. His parents played college basketball, and they were hard on him, especially his older brother. He's got this crazy competitive streak. So even though, he isn't going to have the tools of a Bridges on the perimeter defensively, but he will battle you, and he will take a charge, and he'll be in the right place. So that to me is where, yes, you have all the skill offensively, but it's that dog in him that it might not look like it when he's got the floppy hair. That's to me what makes the difference, where I don't care if it's the conference finals where, he played so well against Denver. That's where the rest of those kind of intangibles come out, because he's trying to die out in there on the floor there.
No, I listen. I like your point about him, his toughness, competitiveness defensively, because he absolutely battles. At no point do I watch Austin Reaves and think there's in any situation is he a liability. Very smart team defensive player, better than you would think on the ball as well. Let's take that comparison with Mikal Bridges here. I'll tell you one way that they're vastly different. Bridges has more length on the perimeter, and he's got a better defensive reputation. I don't think Mikal Bridges fights through screens. I don't think Mikal Bridges wants a whole lot of contact on that end. So that's one area that I think Austin Reaves has an advantage on. But it's the other end of the floor.
Yeah, creation.
Imagine going into a game where, like, Bridges is your top guy or Austin Reaves is your top guy. And I'm not talking about, hey, can you go get me 35? I'm talking about, can you bring the ball up the floor the whole game?
Right.
Can you? Because I've seen games. I called the game we were expecting Luka to make his debut with the Lakers, and he ended up not playing against the Indiana Pacers. And we called that game, and Austin Reaves out there by himself. No LeBron, no Luka, and he drops like 40 on the Pacers, who were coming in red hot at the time, like it was nothing. And so, that's, to me, a different level of offensive player at the NBA level that you can give the ball to go initiate, and you can control the ball against pressure. You can run ball screen with any player. You can get to the line if that's what he requires, because he's very crafty and tricky with regard to that. So I think for me, when you compare, like, for instance, a guy like Bridges and Austin Reaves, there's no comparison on the offensive end of the floor to me.
Legs and Tim Legler with us here, calling the game tonight. Mike Breen, Tim Legler, myself on ESPN Television, Denver and the Lakers. Let's talk Denver. You've seen them as much as anybody on our network. This team, I didn't know what to make of them at times. I felt like, man, they feel like a veteran or two short. But the younger guys have started to come around. Christian Braun has certainly played well this season, but most recently we've seen like Peyton Watson kind of have some really good run, and Zeke Najee's getting involved in there, and even Jalen Pickett, right? Like, they've got some of these young guys playing a little better. What do you see from them? Like, how good are they in comparison to the teams we've seen previously with them?
Yeah, look, I think their depth is an issue. But to your point, losing Julian Strawther was big, because he was a guy that was sort of emerging, coming into his own. He would have been that additional double-figure type scorer guy off your bench every night. Losing him was big. So now it's like, if you're Michael Malone, pretty much know what you have with your starters. You know what you got, depending whether that's Westbrook in the starting lineup or not. So you got 6 guys. You're very confident what you're getting out of those guys. And then it's the rest of that group. Hey, man, on any given night, can just a couple of you contribute offensively in some way? They're going to eat up minutes, but they also be nice to get a timely bucket now and then. Denver is a team, because of the continuity and talent with their starters, the emergence of Christian Braun, what he has become one of my favorite players in the league to watch. We know what Jokic is doing. Jamal Murray is averaging a career high in points. I mean, very few people have kind of noticed that. Jamal Murray's having a very good year. Aaron Gordon's dealt with some injuries, but you see what he's capable of the other night when he has to get a 38-point game to get a win with those guys not playing. He's able to do that. Westbrook's been incredible with this group. So I watched him at one point maybe a month ago, and I thought, you know what? At the end of the day, this is the team that's going to be there at the end with Oklahoma City. And now they've hit some bumps in the road along the way. Their defense hasn't been as good, but Gordon was out, so it's hard to judge them. Now you get a situation where some other guys are banged up, so I don't know when we're going to see them exactly at full strength. But there's no doubt, man, that like the title of second-best team in the West is wide open, and I can make a great argument for probably about 4 teams, and Denver is firmly entrenched in that.
Well, Legs, you mentioned Russell Westbrook. I'd just love to hear what you think about why it was such a disaster with the Lakers, and yet why it has worked out so well for the Nuggets.
Well, I think, first of all, when he was with the Lakers, he was relegated to just pretty much all the time off the ball. And that just is an uncomfortable spot for him to be in. He's not comfortable standing around waiting on spot-up shots. Their offense doesn't have as much movement in it as Denver's does, which plays into his weak side cutting and plays into his speed and his motion. That's one thing. Secondly, when he's on the floor, like he has the ball a lot. The ball gets outletted to him. There's moments when Jokic is out of the game or Murray and he's out there by himself or even with Murray where that ball comes off the rim and first eyes go to him because he can give you an initial pace up the floor that those other guys can't. And they're taking advantage of that. And you can see the numbers and what they've done this year with fast break points. Right now, number 1 in the league at 20 fast break points a game. He's a big part of triggering that. So he feels more true to who he is as a player. And I think that's why he's been more comfortable than he was in Los Angeles when he felt like he was being really relegated to a role that felt foreign to him. And he was doing the best he could to blend in. But a guy like Westbrook, who's just like this tornado of activity, and you're asking him to kind of just chill for a second while this other stuff goes on, that was very difficult for him to do. Denver, I just feel like it looks more like they're recognizing the last name on the back of the jersey, and this is what this guy brings, and we're going to let him do that when he's on the floor. And as a result, you're getting great results.
Legs, plug the pod. Where can people find all your great work besides ESPN? Because you're doing great work with Adam Mares.
All City NBA podcast, man. I think everybody should check it out. If you just love hoops, just straight hoops talk, that's what we do, man. Breaking down games, big pictures in the league. It's 4 days a week. All City NBA podcast. You can get that pretty much anywhere. You could download an app. So hopefully we'll get some new listeners.
All right, Legs. Appreciate the time, brother. I'll see you later.
That's hardcore, by the way.
Well, I mean, he is hardcore.
hardcore.
That's what he does.
I understand.
Oh, wait,
That's
actually,
hardcore.
Legs. Wait, bring him back. Bring him back. Legs, are you still there?
I'm here.
DeAndre,
Yeah.
my producer DeAndre. Remember last time you were on? It was Philly. It was Washington. You guys were talking a little smack. My guy,
Oh, my
my
God.
guy
That's right.
DeAndre. My guy DeAndre.
You know what? Actually, I can't, guys, it's breaking up. It's breaking up. I cannot. I'm having a really difficult time.
See you, Legs. There he is, the great Tim Legler with us here.
Some hardcore hoops right there is what that is.
Yeah, but you didn't want to face the love machine, though.
Yeah.
No.
Come on now. No one does, man. I mean, just 255 pounds of twisted steel, man.
Twisted steel and sex appeal.
appeal.
Don't forget about the sex appeal.